Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Mr. Dogbo333, and welcome back to Hearts of Iron 4, The New Order Last Days of Europe, as Amur. Now, in the last video, we began our descent into Paranoia and all this good stuff. Let's go ahead and get some, allocate that. We took back the province of Vladivostochsk by working with the Japanese. And we're currently working on God, Labor, Nation, whatever that exactly is. Trying to figure out what we should start with building wise. There we go. Probably should have just I have some schools and hospitals here, so I just want to wait until we get a core on this, and then we can go. Although, I think for now, we'll build up Amur a little bit. Rapture's joys fills with streets of Vladivostochsk today, as when Radzevsky arrived. The populace, encouraged by the black troops who handed out swastika flags and portraits of the Vaz, turned out in their hundreds to cheer on our glorious leaders' procession as they marched through the chilly morning air to the town hall. There, the mayor greeted the Vaz the keys of his city, and led the crowd in a rousing rendition of Farewell of Slavianka. The Vaz was visibly overjoyed to be back in his hometown, tears freezing on his cheeks as he addressed the enthralled crowd and the armed black troops keeping guard. This is a day that will live on in the history of our great nation. Today we reclaim the very heart of the all-Russian government. For it was here, over 50 years ago, the divine destiny of Russia began to unfold. Here, Holy Russia saw the genesis of its rebirth. Glory to Russia! The Vaz had one further honor to bestow upon the town. Henceforth, by Vaz's decree, it shall bear his own name in perpetuity. Vladivostochsk is dead. Long live the noble people of Radzevsk. Welcome to Radzevsk. Well, I mean, we get a core on it, so I'm not complaining too much. And I'm gonna take my jacket off real quick, just because I am feeling a slight bit toasty. And here we go. Back at it once again. I want to check my economy tab real quick. We're having some growth. We're in the Japanese economic sphere. Hopefully that helps us at least a little bit. We have a gradual growth towards a gradual increase at least. I mean, I wonder, can we... We can actually get a bit of a surplus, which it would help our credit rating rise at least a little bit. I think I'll do that for now. Para raid against Magadan, but I'm not too worried about that now. And after taking Vladivostochsk, we'll be okay. Our men on the northwestern border tasked with watching the Mongols when Moldana reported new arrivals. Apparently a small party, counting among its numbers a Russian woman as well as a man claiming to be American, requested entry into our territory. The man claims he is planning to visit across all Russian and would thus like to visit Zaya. Our men claim not to have any reason to doubt him or his apparently legitimate travel documents. We must, however, be cautious. Although difficult and thus unlikely, it would not be impossible for a party of infiltrators from the renegades of Magadan or the relics in Chi to approach from the direction of Aldan and attempt to find a border zone with weaker security. Both groups would like nothing more than to see the Vaz brought low and put into chains. Or worse. If he is truly who he says, however, he offers a golden opportunity. Proving the strength and legitimacy of our government could potentially allow us to gain more influence in the region. It would assist considerably in advancing our goals of regional and eventually national supremacy. They do not seem to be planning insurrection against the Vaz, but of course, one can rarely tell the intentions of parasites, even if they were to make themselves known. What should we do with them? They're no threat. Let them continue to Zaya. God, nation, labor. Next. We'll work on Radzevsky's Paranoia, methinks. It's no secret that the Russian Fascist Party, and by extension its head Radzevsky, have witnessed countless betrayals by his so-called peers. Not only have these betrayals been personal attacks on the Vozd, but many of the most prominent, among them the Renegade, and Magadan, the Tsarist, and Shida, have been directly linked to the failures of the RFB and Radzevsky, stalling for years the liberation of Russia from the communist yoke. But no longer. If there has been anything that the Vozd has learned since the failure of a united front, is that no one can be trusted. Success comes from personal hard work and the ability to get things done as an individual. Nothing else will suffice. It's time to take stock and clean house. From the lowest party officials to Radzevsky's inner circle, none will be exempt from scrutiny, and traitors will be dealt with in the harshest ways. Although I'm still working to improve my Russian, I'm able enough to understand a tense situation, the kind of which we had while trying to cross into Amur. Stopped by Border Patrol, a very rough-looking man, I found myself giving thanks to my earlier decision to employ Zoya's services. Through a combination of a rapid-fire Russian, my own capital, my own documents, we were allowed to proceed into Zaya, the territory's capital and seat of the RFP's other Vozd. I must say, when I was told in Magadan about how depressing a place Zaya in particular, and Amur in general was, I was skeptical. But I am no longer. There's a pall of barely restrained violence hanging over everything, a feeling that if one places their foot wrongly, there will be immediate and severe consequences. I now well understand why Makovsky's faction split from the one here. Zoya and I have quickly established a beneficial working arrangement, even as we improve each other's language skills, and she told me she feels the same. Neither of us particularly wish to remain here for any length of time, and so once able, we will continue westwards, towards a land I'm told maintains a pocket of old monarchism, and that has its own quarrels with Amur. I cannot imagine why. That was a joke, Steve. Get better at writing sarcasm. Leaving this place behind will be a blessing. We could increase external investments. That actually might not be a bad idea. I'll increase state GDP in some of these areas as well, so I think I'll do that. Yeah. We could raid Magadan. I think I'm okay so far, though. I'm not too worried about that. So yeah, I'm trying to think of what to talk about. I have work in the morning. It's currently 8:48 when I'm recording. I usually try to go to bed by 9:30 because I have to wake up at 5:30 because I have to be work at 7. I'm not a morning person, so it kind of sucks, but what are you gonna do? Let's do this as soon as we can so we can get it over soon enough. Purging the Supreme Council. Nobody's above fascist law, and the high members of the Supreme Court of the Russian Fascist Party are not an exemption. Although the council is supposed to represent the most active and devoted members of the party, from the very beginning it was filled with careers and traitors who cared about nothing but their welfare. We foolish assume that those kind of people disappear with Makovsky, as the marks of treachery are evident in every aspect of life in the state. Every single instance of disinformation, corruption, and disobedience, even at the lowest levels, could be linked to the highest body of the all-Russian government. Even with the same names constantly reappearing on the blacklist papers that are gathered on Radzevsky's desk. Vos has always looked at with suspicion towards his closest associates, and now he wills to issue his judgment towards every single one of them, to evaluate their degrees of treachery. Some of them were indeed faithful followers of fascism, but more of them have baggage to hide from the eyes of the black shirts. Well, there we go. Konstantin Radzevsky, Vos of all Russians, and the true leader of the Russian Fascist Party, drifted into his office in his traditional pseudo-military garb. Removing his hat, he sat down on his archaic oaken desk and ran a hand through his grizzled hair. Another sleepless night, he grumbled to himself as he sat himself in the chair, sighing as he did so. Reports of troop movements, suspected traitors, and production quotas had already been placed neatly on his desk, lightly by some orderly or assistant whose name he couldn't be bothered to remember. Those were all signed by his confidant, Bolotov, who had become one of his closest allies in the past decade. He didn't even bother with any of the reports except those regarding suspected traitors. Open portfolio marked internal dissent, Radzevsky reviewed some of the names, muttering himself. Bokachov, Chikachov. His eyebrows raised at the third name as he read. Resolve. Mikhail Resolve had been an extremely loyal senior party official in Zaya. Rozevsky had known him personally for a number of years, but it sort of made sense. After a year back, he had made a joke about the party financial infrastructure in Zaya, and Bolotov had produced some fairly convincing evidence that linked him to his long-lost Zaya banker, Paranoia, who had attempted to hide his Jewish ancestry. The Voz grimaced. Replacing Razov would be a pain, but if he had fraternized with Berzov, whatever company he had been keeping. He picked up the phone on his desk and dialed his trusted security minister. I've seen the new list. Move on to them all. The truth was that Resolve was innocent. The only contact he ever had with Bereznyov was when he verbally assaulted him for his Jewish ancestry. The Voz's paranoia had clouded judgment, but as long as Bolotov had kept reducing traitors, Rozevsky's paranoia would be sated. Ever since the renegades split the party and the United Front fell apart, the all-Russian state was dominated by the Voz's suspicion. The clouds darken. Well, yeah. Our poverty is only going up, which is rough to see. I mean, I hope we have time to catch up. I mean, by the time I was by the end of the Briadia campaign, I was about 30% poverty rate, if even that, which was pretty good. Granted, I don't know how concerned Rozevsky is going to be with poverty and poverty reduction, but we can wait and see. Go on. Rozevsky said to the tiny figure of a kitten before him. Drink. In front of it was a bowl filled with warm milk. As his fingers touched his head, it hissed. Fierce kitten. When Rozevsky found him on the street of his new domain, it scratched his face. No man would dare mess with a little kitten, he thought, brave and courageous in the face of an absolute danger. Its coat was a patchy and rough crisscross of monochrome, but its eyes were bright golden discs. God's gift to the Voz of Russians. An aide entered. Rozevsky did not even notice the footprints. Russia could wait. The world could wait. The Jews could wait. The party, Mikovsky, Mikhail, none of it mattered. The kitten's hisses and snorts mattered more than the aide's report. Its little tongue lapping the white richness in front of it soothed Konstantine's heart more than anything else. The feel of its fur, coarse and dirty, dusty and grimy, did not repulse nor frighten him. And its touch was a new life, unsullied and unsoiled by the machinations of the world hostile to its ideals. Sir? Are you quite all right? Yes. Moreover, what are you doing here? Get out of here, Rozevsky thought. He was in no mood to send anyone to the firing line. Nice kitty, sir. No shit. Have you thought of a name for it yet, sir? The question troubled Rozevsky. He had not given it a thought. What would be a good name for a bold kitten such as this one? Murrah. He's Murrah. Now get out! The aide promptly exited his room and left Rozevsky alone with his new friend, his new companion through the decades to come. Even the Voss has a heart. Right, he doesn't have a wife, because I think Petlin stole his wife. Real historical fact. Petlin, who can lead Magadan over here, went ahead and cut Mikovsky. I wonder if that's going to play into any events coming up. Let's go ahead and do eyes in every home. National purification doesn't end at the top. It also has to cover the bottom. To make the population comply with our ideals, targeted repressions and purges are not enough. We need to ensure submission and vigilance at every level of Russian society. While black shirts will continue and intensify their regular activities against the enemies of a nation, the burden of the anti-treason efforts will be imposed not merely on them, but also on the patriotic, conscious citizens of Russia who will lead our efforts against the traitors. A neighbor will watch over his neighbor. The children will be encouraged to report on their distant parents, and our servicemen will be hidden in plain sight, ready to cover anti-state activities at any given moment. Every aspiring insurgent will find himself surrounded by an atmosphere of constant terror and persecution, not being able to take a step without fear of retribution. Well, there we go. Supreme Council met once a day, usually in the morning, 7 days a week in the capital of the all-Russian government. The building met in a converted hotel was made to look much more grand than it really was. A giant glowing swastika akin to the one that Rozevsky had installed in the RFP building in Manzui, decades ago, had been placed on the top of the old hotel. Ostensibly, the Supreme Council was a body of government that would help determine laws, enforce ordinances, and help guide the Vaz in his quest to reunite Russia. However, to independent observers, it would seem closer to a king and his court than a council of equals. Truthfully, the Supreme Council wielded little power. Most members were the oldest thugs from the RFP, back when it was an exile movement in Harbin. And for the most part, none of them dared challenge the politics of the Vaz, especially in its current volatile moods. Thus, the Supreme Council was more of Radzevsky's echo chamber than was an actual functioning arm of the government. That being said, it didn't prevent the paranoid Vaz from thinking that there were dissenters, even among his oldest and most trusted advisors. So when the council met this morning, Radzevsky, Bolotov, and Okotin stood at the end of the conference room and watched as one and every 3 council members were forced out of their seats by black shirts and arrested for anti-Russian activities. In the coming days, all of those arrested will be publicly trialed and hung, their names stricken from the party registry, and their memory buried. Finally, we've secured the highest echelons of our party's leadership. Security Minister tacitly agreed. Of course, my Faust. They were plotting. I'm glad we got rid of them. Even Bolotov had begun to doubt the extent of his purges. How long before Radzevsky turned on him? But dissenters won't liquidate themselves. Bolotov checked his watch nervously. It read 1:13 a.m. Rumor had it that Radzevsky was typically up at this time, but rarely convened in his advisors for any governmental needs. Why has he called me in? Bolotov had finally asked himself as he hurried to the Vaz residence. Had he finally outlived his usefulness? When Bolotov let himself into Radzevsky's study, he found the Vaz with a bottle of vodka and a series of documents on his desk. Bolotov had recognized them immediately. They're ones he had given the Vaz the evening prior. He'd snuck in with the rest of his reporters a dossier about the activities of Lev Okotin, Radzevsky's longtime second command. Embezzlement and bribery were the charges leveled towards him, and a family traceable path of money was included in the dossier. As Bolotov let himself in, Radzevsky didn't even greet him. Is this true? The tone of his voice evidenced his exhaustion, but the look in his eyes showed betrayal. More than that, bloodshot and with bags. The rumors were true. The Vaz was an insomniac. Bolotov didn't even try to feign ignorance. It's what the evidence showed, my Vaz. I couldn't believe it myself. Lev's been stealing the party for, well, years maybe. There was a pause. And what the bribery? Can we look into those who took the money Okotin offered? Security Minister grimaced. Unfortunately not, my Vaz. You see the names there, Kvasov and Bogyachov, both executed for treason, the latter last week. Seems like we caught them first. There was a second prolonged pause, Bolotov awkwardly standing in front of Radzevsky's desk. Radzevsky lethargically waved his hand. Dismissed. As Bolotov saw himself out, the Vaz's mind raced. Could Okotin have hidden this for so long? How could he have done this? Or is this just a play by Bolotov to remove competition? Akhenaten is actually a pretty solid advisor. It's time to go to bed. Okotin would never do this. Gonna keep getting some political power. It looks like we might need ourselves some more grid power. So we'll go ahead and get some. We have eyes in every home. Next, let's do the Heart of Darkness. Row by row, man by man, from the top to the bottom, all must be examined. Black shirts, party officials, military officers, cabinet members, all will be given a number and tested. Even those who the Vaz have called friends for years are not free from inspection. The party must be purged of its subversive elements, and if it means that Konstantin Radzevsky has to put a bullet in every last traitor's skull himself, by God, he will do it. No stone will be left unturned, as every party member's loyalty will be tested. Stand up for Russia. Stand up for your nation. Look at your brothers beside you. In them lurks a potential traitor, a Judas to our cause. What do we do to Judas? For the betrayer is condemned to an eternity of pain in hell. We too shall condemn them to pain in life. Be ever vigilant and prove your loyalty to the Vost. There we go. Let's do it. One of the few remaining organizations within the Vost territory with the intent to end the rule of Konstantin Radzevsky were the Son of the Tsars, a minor group of monarchists who were sympathetic in Mikhail II's cause. They mostly occupied lower bureaucratic positions in the town of Radzevsk, previously protected by the incompetence of the Manchukuoan authorities and early cut off from the white movement in the east. They'd been hiding in plain sight, so to speak. That was until one of their members had lost his nerve. Following interrogation, standard procedure by the Blackshirts for rooting out traitors, he decided to come clean. Approaching the party's regional office in Radzevsk, he told the officials everything he knew. Plans, meeting places, individuals involved, and their degree in involvement. When he was done, the party officials laughed. One mentioned they had taken down resistance movements 3 times as large as his. They promised him immunity for prosecution, but on his way out, he was promptly arrested. The man, forced into a truck with a number of Blackshirts, was brought out and forced to bear witness as every member of his dissenting movement was rooted out. Each time the Blackshirts made a big show of the man's role in the collapse of the movement, curtsying and bowing in the most sarcastic manners and thanking him in a superfluous way. Patting him on the back and acting as if they were his best friend, all in front of his former compatriots, who he helped bust. As the last of their names were on the list were ticked off, the man was taken to the outskirts of the city and shot, ultimately being left unburied. The rest were simply imprisoned in war camps and relegated to forced labor. For while it may be terrible to be a traitor, there's nothing worse than being a traitor to the traitors, for no honor at all is spared. More manpower for the camps. Damn. Did not work out for him at all, did it? We'll work on some more energy for our power grids, because it looks like we could use some. We even have a new potential unit. Is that socialist? Outright socialist. Interesting. Here we are, the Heart of Darkness. I see we should probably get working on some army stuff, so let's do Radzevsk Military Academy. The politically conscious white officers and the anti-Bolshevik fighters who exceeded the Japanese way of war proved to be a great aid in our reconquest of Amur, but as a core of the military, they alone aren't a force to rely on in the long term. The demand of the ever-escalating war requires us to nurture military traditions of our own, supply our formations with officer corps, provide it with the professionals who embrace the experience accumulated by the greatest military minds of our age. We need to learn to forge military cadres through every available means. Thus, the Radzevsk Military Academy will function as the first war school of New Russia. The Voz himself will be present in his hometown, and the opening of the academy to greet recruits and announce his hopes and aspirations for a new generation of Russian officers who will bring glory to the fascist sword. Anything to improve our professionalism? Which we have. We do not have a very good organization set up right now. Like, it honestly, I think it might honestly be the worst I've seen starting off. Like, straight up. I don't know if I've usually seen it around cronyism, not disorganized high command. Is that right? Okay, economy. Raise the military GDP. It won't back down so easily. Spawned a new unit of the new Asano Brigade. Special episode in the history of Russo-Japanese cooperation with the history of the Asano Brigades, an anti-communist formation of Harbin youth that served along with the Imperial Japanese Army. Formed under the auspices of the esteemed Kwantung Army officers, the brigade proved itself a capable force against the communist partisans, or the asset to one of the strongest armies in Asia. Their valor was even compared to those of a samurai. The brigade was eventually disbanded, with many of them participating in the last struggle against Bolshevism in the Far East, and later joining the anti-communist armies of Russia, including ours. As a matter of security against the resurgent Bolshevik threat become relevant for us both, we can petition the Imperial Japanese Army High Command for the creation of the 2nd Asano Brigade, which will not only serve the purpose of the common cause between the all-Russian government and the Empire of Japan, but will also provide us with a reliable veteran group that will aid in our later campaigns. Speaking of reliable, we need that troop-wise. There we go. I swear by God, this holy oath, that I offer unconditional obedience to the laws of the Russian nation and the people of Konstantin Radzevsky, the commander-in-chief of the all-Russian army, and that I am prepared as a brave soldier to risk my life for my oath at any time. Anton finished his pledge of allegiance with gusto, puffing out his chest and as he thumped his right fist against his chest and then threw it outwards and upwards into the assembled comrades. "Glory to Russia!" he shouted, his voice clear in the chilly air of a lecture theater. "Glory to Russia!" came the roaring, unified refrain of the cadets, as they too saluted the army's newest lieutenant. "Glory to Russia," marked Major Corboot, who also took his turn to salute before stepping in front of Anton, producing a lieutenant's bar fashioned from brass and pinning it to his breast. "Lieutenant Anton Mikhailovich Milnikov, you are henceforth an officer in the Russian race. In the all-Russian army, sorry. You will now represent all that is best in the Russian race. You will not fail. You will not falter. You will not give a single step to the enemy. You will uphold the glory of the laws in the all-Russian government against the Bolshevik Venice and its puppets, where they may be found. Do you understand?" Anton saluted again, stretching his arm so far and fast that he felt something pop in his elbow. "Yes, sir! Glory to Russia!" Corbett nodded approvingly, and Anton allowed himself a joyous grin. He had done well. He had earned every top marks in every course, made child's play of every physical trait, and proven his loyalty by denouncing the degenerate homosexuals who had infiltrated the Radzevsky Officers' Academy. Of course, as a good Christian man, he understood the value of humility, but in that moment, Anton Mikhailovich allowed himself to bathe in some well-earned pride. An exemplar of the Russian people. Could focus on research. Our academic base could use some improvements. I think I'll do industrial investments for now, though. I think that... But granted, we won't be able to use them in a bit, but... Still, I'll hold off for now. I'll go for a little longer. Brazil wins the World Cup. Look at that. Got a new Asano Brigade. Gotta get our Field Marshal back in charge. Octavin. Get Vasily back in charge. Get some extra equipment. That actually is probably a good idea. It's a little unfortunate there. Let's do arms from the spear. First opening herself to the world during the Meiji Restoration of the 19th century, Japan made a long way to becoming one of the world's leading superpowers in an economic and industrial giant, which exceeded in every area of production one can imagine. The almighty Zaibatsu, titans of Asian economy, produce immeasurable amounts of guns and ammunition, most of which aren't used immediately for the service of the IGA and the adjacent forces in the sphere, but instead are stored until better times. Those tools could be very useful for us. With insufficient arms production in our lands to compensate for the lack of equipment of our forces, we could obtain the surplus Japanese guns and ammo for a handsome price and back up our promises to use them against our common threats, those being border bandits and communists. There we go. Well, I think we got another brigade, which is very nice. I think we only had this brigade to begin with, actually. Never mind. Never mind. I'll go to the end of the month. If we have any events pop up, that'll be nice. If not, I'll just go ahead and end it from here. Toe's been installed. You can invest in infrastructure or focus on research. I mean, infrastructure's always good, I'm not gonna lie. I think I'll focus on research first, though. Our academic base could use some improvement. And it looks like we can go ahead at our, get another civilian factory producing stuff. And that's it for now, my friends. Methinks. I'll finish it. I'll finish this focus up. Yeah, that's it for now, my friends. Thank you so much for watching. Like this video if you like it, dislike if you didn't. If you have any comments, feedback, and certainly leave a comment section below. I read all the comments again, appreciate any feedback you might have for me. If you want to chat or play games, check out my Discord. If you want to see me do so live, check out my Twitch. Check out the rest of my links down in the description box below. If you want to keep up to date with these uploads, you can hit the sub button, even hit the notification bell if you really want to keep up with it. That's really for now, my friends. I thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.